Paul writes in Galatians 6:2, "Bear one another's burdens, therefore fulfilling the law of Christ." As I think about where we are right now in history, we have so many things that are dividing us, it seems, whether it's race relations, whether it's politics, whether it's this pandemic, and whether we should or shouldn't go places or open up things, whatever it may be. You know, right now we have a plethora of things that can divide us. And I believe it's now is such an important time of remembering the importance of staying together, working together, loving one another, and helping to bear one another's burdens. I'm reminded of an old parable that speaks about this. It talks about a time when a guy was just really wanting to see what heaven and hell looked like. And so he pleaded to God, "Could you please show me what this looks like?" And so God obliged, and he took him to two rooms. He goes opens up the door of the first room, and the man's able to look inside, and he sees this big, huge pot of stew that just smelled delicious, smelled so good. And all around this pot was about 8 people, and they were all kind of chained together, and they had this big, long spoon, and it was the perfect length for being able to scoop up some of this delicious stew. But it was too long for the person to be able to turn it around and actually eat it. So every time they would scoop it up and then try to feed themselves, it would just splatter, get everywhere, and it would never come. So all the people in this room were miserable and famished and just looked terrible. And the man said, "This is a horrible sight. Let me get out of this room." So God takes him to the next room, and he was surprised to see in the room that's supposed to represent heaven that there were still the same pot, still the same delicious stew, still 8 people around, still the same way with the big long spoon, except these people were different. These people were laughing and joking, and they were full, you could see. But what was happening was, instead of the people trying to feed themselves, they would scoop it up and they would feed one another. And they were taking turns doing that. It's a simple lesson for the most part. I'm sure it's one that you've heard as well, but in these times we're reminded once again of what it's like to help one another. And when we're only focused on ourselves, that isolates us so much, and it keeps us away from everybody. And I don't believe that that is what God intended. I believe God intended to put us here on earth to help one another, to share one another's burdens, and thus fulfilling the law of Jesus Christ, which is love God with all your heart and mind and soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. So I urge us, as we continue to move on this slow track, it seems like getting back to normal, is to look out for one another, pray for one another, love one another, try to find the ways in which we can help each other instead of trying to separate once again. And once again, my prayers are with you all. I love you all, and may God bless you and keep you abundantly and keep you safe. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.